Two phones, completely different shapes. And look, this is a terrible comparison. This is not an apples to apples comparison. But here's the thing, like if you're sitting there wondering whether to jump to a foldable, this video might actually help you out. Like this is the Galaxy Z Fold8 and this is the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. They're both premium, but one of them is $850 cheaper. The S26 Ultra is going for about $1,049 right now. The Fold8 is $1,900. And look, I love the Fold8, I really do, but I don't think it's for everybody. There's a lot of hype right now, and the S26 Ultra has so many good things going for it that you'd be giving up. Now, when you pick up the S26 Ultra, you get that familiar candy bar shape. It's very well made, it's been done right, big device, obviously a two-handed phone. It's also more durable than the Fold8. The S26 Ultra is IP68, the Fold8 is IP48. Both are water resistant, the difference is the dust rating. And IP48 specifically means it's only rated against dust particles bigger than 1 millimeter. Like think about that. Beach, you got sand, smaller than 1 millimeter. Pocket lint, smaller. Drywall dust on a job site, way smaller. So if you're working somewhere dusty or you're a beach person, I'd go S26 Ultra. The other thing, you're moving from an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner to a side-mounted one. Depending on how you're holding the phone, you'll have to move your hand around. It's a nitpick and not a big deal, honestly, but you'll probably end up registering 3 or 4 fingers on the Fold8, where 2 would have been fine on the Ultra. But here's what makes the Fold8 so special. It has 2 screens, a hinge, thicker form factor, but it still manages to be lighter. 201 grams versus 214 on the S26 Ultra. Both are using Armor aluminum frames. The difference is inside the Fold8. Samsung is using a flexible titanium layer built into the display stack to keep the hinge area durable. Now, the first thing you notice on the Fold8 is the cover screen, and it's way smaller than the S26 Ultra's display. 5.5 inches. Like, it's good for firing off a quick text, simple stuff, but most of the time, you're gonna wanna open the phone. And that's actually the test for you. Like if you don't think you'll be opening this thing constantly, just get the S26 Ultra. Whereas the Fold8, I'm opening it every time I wanna do anything real. Like when you hold these two, and because the Fold8 is shorter, you assume it's easier to type on with one hand. It is absolutely not. Like this is a wide phone. It's actually wider than the S26 Ultra, 81.9 millimeters versus 78.1. I did typing tests on both one hand. They were both just as uncomfortable and my speed was basically identical. Look, these are two-handed phones, both of them. Don't let the smaller footprint of the Fold8 fool you. It fits nicer in your palm because there's obviously less foam, but you're still typing with 2 thumbs. And I know some of you are typing, you just have small hands, Matt. Look, I do not have small hands. Look at these puppies, okay? I've got long fingers, very long fingers. Like you wanna have a finger contest? I'll finger all of you.
What?
But we gotta talk about the specs for a second because on paper, the S26 Ultra wins. 6.9 inches, 19.5 by 9, tall and skinny, more pixels per inch. The Fold8's inner display is 7.6 inches, but only 428 ppi. So the Ultra is technically sharper. But here's the thing. That 7.6 inch display is a 4:3 aspect ratio. And when you're watching 16:9 content, which is most of the stuff you watch, that gives you about 40% more actual picture than the S26 Ultra. Not 40% bigger screen on a spec sheet, 40% more video. Because the Ultra's tall, skinny screen throws away a huge chunk of itself to black bars the second you go landscape. And the screen on the Ultra is already big enough. 40% on top of that is a real difference. The crazy part is that 4:3 shape also beats the bigger Fold8 Ultra for video. Not by much, but by a little bit. That aspect ratio changes how you use the phone. Spreadsheets, the Fold8 gives you more width, so more columns at once. The Ultra is taller, so held in portrait mode, you get more rows. Flip the Ultra into landscape and you get your columns back, but now you're looking at a strip. Where the Fold8 really pulls ahead is side-by-side apps. Both phones technically do it. On the S26 Ultra, it's borderline useless, 2 skinny slivers. The aspect ratio just doesn't work for it. On the Fold8, it actually makes sense, even more so on the Fold8 Ultra. And reading, this is the one that surprised me the most. Flip the Fold into portrait and reading on it is genuinely reminiscent of reading off a piece of paper. On the S26 Ultra, and this goes for every candy bar phone, you can obviously read books, but you're staring at a narrow column. After a while, it bugs my eyes. Give me a wider surface for the text to flow across, and I can obviously read longer. The Fold8 is just a better content consumption device, period. Both phones have an anti-reflective coating. It happens to be on the inner display for the Fold 8. And look, both are excellent. The S26 Ultras look slightly better to me, and I think that's simply because it's real glass, Gorilla Armor 2. The inner display on the Fold 8 picks up so many fingerprints. It's not a knock on the phone. This is specifically all foldables I've used. Also, if scratching matters more to you, that inner screen on the Fold 8 is gonna be softer. A fingernail has a higher chance to mark it. The Ultra's Gorilla Armor 2 is rated higher, making it much more difficult to damage. And the S26 Ultra has one thing the Fold 8 doesn't, a privacy display. The panel physically has two kinds of pixels, wide angle and narrow angle. And when you turn privacy mode on, it shuts the wide angle ones off. So people beside you literally cannot see your screen. Now, whether that matters to you is up to you. Like, I don't know. Like, I barely used it, but maybe on a plane or pulling up something sensitive in a crowd, it could come in handy. Now, both are 120 Hertz, both get seriously bright, but the Fold 8's inner display actually measures a higher peak than the S26 Ultra. Over 3,000 nits versus 2,600 on the Ultra. But that's a peak number on a small white patch. In normal use, brightness cranked, they're within about 40 nits of each other. They're basically tied, and they both look fantastic outdoors. Now, the one feature that the S26 Ultra has that no other Samsung device has, at least the newer ones, is the S Pen. It's in the phone, it's included. Neither Fold supports one at all. Samsung dropped S Pen support on the Fold 7 and hasn't brought it back. But here's the thing, and this is just me. The only time I've ever used an S Pen is to show it in a video or when my kid grabs the phone. I don't use it, it's just not my thing. But here's my real take, okay? The S Pen makes way more sense on a foldable than on a candy bar phone. You've got a bigger canvas to draw on. The aspect ratio is nice for writing. If Samsung's going to keep the S Pen alive, I'd pull it off the S26 Ultra and put it on the Fold 8 Ultra where it belongs. All right, this is the part that actually pisses me off because the Fold 8 is using the exact same processor as the S26 Ultra, same Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, and remember, the Ultra came out in February, 6 months ago. And look, if you run a Geekbench test, they'll score almost the same, right? Burst performance is fairly identical, but as soon as you do anything sustained, there's a real difference. The S26 Ultra has way better thermal management. It's a thicker phone. There's more room for cooling. Stability is noticeably better. I was just taking photos with both. The Fold 8 gets hot right away. The S26 Ultra gets warm. Run a 20-minute stress loop and the Ultra holds higher scores across every loop. Better stability, more frames per second, and it drains about 1% less battery doing it. So if you're a gamer, or you do anything with sustained load on a regular basis, which I imagine is a smaller population, the Ultra is the pick. It's cooler, faster, and honestly, the longevity of the device should be better too. And here's the kicker. The Fold 8 did not get the bigger graphite heat spreader the Fold 8 Ultra got. Samsung left it out on a phone that costs $850 more than their flagship candy bar phone. But if you care about photos, the Fold 8's camera system is basically the regular S26's with one exception. 50 megapixel main versus 200 on the S26 Ultra. The Ultra's main sensor is physically bigger, 1/1.3 versus 1/1.56, and it's shooting at f1.4 versus f1.8. That means when the light drops, the Ultra is pulling in meaningfully more of it. And honestly, the Fold 8 does take great photos in daylight. It's not a bad camera, but I found the Ultra to be more consistent. Even in good light, it exposed the scene better and got the colors more right more often. It's just a better camera experience across the board. The good news though is the ultra wides are effectively identical, 50 megapixels on both, same class of sensors, so there's no difference. And this new ultra wide has autofocus, which the regular Galaxy S26 doesn't get. That makes a real difference for macro shots. But here's the bad news. There's no telephoto on the Fold 8. Look, I think the S26 Ultra's telephoto system isn't the best in the business. There's obviously other camera systems that have a better telephoto, but it lets you reach up to 100 times digital. And look, after past a certain point, it looks like garbage, but the moments you go past 2 or 3 times, real optical glass kicks in and you're getting a generally better image than you do on the Fold 8's digital crop. The Fold 8 tops out at around 10 times digital compared to 100 times on the Ultra. Front cameras are different too. The S26 Ultra's got a 12 megapixel f2.2 with autofocus. The Fold 8 has 10 megapixel sensors on both the cover and the inside. Better sensor on the Ultra, better selfies, better video calls, better front-facing video. Although, I'll give the Fold 8 this. You can shoot yourself with the rear cameras using the cover screen as a monitor. You're looking at the front-facing cameras on the Galaxy S26 Ultra and the Z Fold 8. sunny day, so let's see how these phones handle dynamic range. Obviously the camera on the S26 Ultra should be a little bit better, but yeah. How do they look? Sun's directly on my face. I'm gonna turn around. Now I'm backlit. Let's see how that gets handled. And now I'm side lit. Which one has the better image and which one has the better microphones? All right, we gotta talk about repairability, because if you happen to break the screen on the S26 Ultra, easier and cheaper to replace. Crack the cover screen on the Fold8, not so bad, but crack the inner display on the Fold8, it's gonna cost you serious money. And here's the thing, the odds of it happening are just higher. It's a softer screen. There are more moving parts. You're opening and closing a hinge dozens of times a day. If you don't have Samsung Care Plus, you're paying that out of pocket. But the Fold8 does ship with the newer stuff. Like, you're getting Android 17 versus Android 16 and One UI 8.5 on the S26 Ultra. But let's be real, this is all temporary. You get to be one of the first people on the new version of Android for a few weeks, and then the S26 Ultra gets it too. It's not a reason to buy the Fold8 over it. Both also get 7 years of updates. The thing I do want to flag is app compatibility. There are apps out there that just don't look right on the Fold8. Instagram doesn't look as good. You've seen other videos where people find apps with the bottom completely chopped off. Like, this is the Android foldable experience. And look, it's not Samsung's fault alone. Like, it does take a collective movement from developers to update apps for these displays, and a lot of them won't. Because who's rewriting their layout for the small slice of people buying these? Like, that number goes up with the Fold8, but not enough to really move the needle. Samsung will fix Samsung apps. Don't expect everyone else to fix theirs. Now, credit where credit's due. Samsung has built in some tools for this. There's a per app aspect ratio menu on the main screen, and there's a labs toggle that enables side-by-side multi-window on apps that don't officially support it. It doesn't solve everything, but it does patch some of the ugliness, right? Battery life is closer than I expected, and I mean that I was genuinely surprised how good the Fold8 is here. 0 issues getting through the full day, and a lot of you ask about my usage, so roughly 60% on the outer screen, 40% on the inner. I'd finish the day around 40 to 50% left. The S26 Ultra gets me about the same, maybe a bit more, and it's got the bigger battery, 5,000 versus 4,800, but it's only feeding one screen. Charging is a clear win for the Ultra though, 60 watts versus 45. 0 to 75% in half an hour on the Ultra versus about 65 on the Fold8, and 25-watt wireless versus 20. All right, the bottom line, and we gotta be practical here. If you're being logical about all this, the S26 Ultra obviously makes more sense. It's not even a debate, okay? You're saving $850. You're getting a much better camera system with actual optical zoom, faster charging, an S Pen, if that matters to you, better durability and a proper dust rating, cheaper repairs, better speakers, better sustained performance, and better app compatibility. The only reason to buy the Fold8 is if you know you're gonna live on that big screen. If you read a lot, watch a lot, run 2 apps side by side every single day, that's why you buy it. But let's be honest here. It is easier to carry than the Ultra. And that inner screen is the best media screen Samsung sells right now. Like, it's not the sharpest, the best actually to watch things on. That's what $850 buy. A bigger display and a smaller package, and you're giving up cameras, cooling, durability, and speakers to get it. And yes, you can obviously buy a cheap tablet instead if you want to go that route as well. The Fold8 is obviously the more interesting phone. The S26 Ultra is the better one. Whether more interesting is worth $850 more, that's something you're gonna have to decide. But I will say this, if you got an S26 Ultra or even an S25 Ultra, don't have FOMO. Your world is not gonna change because you bought a foldable. It'll be fun for a bit, then the honeymoon phase ends and it's just a phone again. I'd rather you keep the money until your current phone actually stops serving you. And by then, the foldable you buy will have more cameras, better cooling, and features that don't exist yet. The form factor is brand new, Apple's foldable is coming, Oppo's got one. Everybody's about to pile in. It gets better from here. Buy the phone when the phone is ready for you. Anyways, that wraps up my video. I'll place links to both of these devices in the description down below. Drop any comments you may have. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.